In this video, I discuss something that has been plaguing my mind for some time now. Is fan art taken all that seriously? As an artist from a contemporary fine art background that now finds herself in the concept art realm, making art for video games and movie concepts and commission-based works, as well as art that is based on movies, TV shows or video games that are mainstream, I have to ask myself two questions every day. Am I being taken seriously as an artist when I create fan art? Is my art being taken seriously when it is based on something another artist has created? I'd like to clarify that the term fan art here is used in the context of anything that is based on something that already exists. Might it be fan art, fan music, fan fiction, or fan-made films? Let's first ask this question. Why is fan art so popular? Well, that's an easy question to answer. Fan art is popular because we are already familiar with the subject the art depicts. It is also popular because it is easy to find. There is also a great quantity of high-quality fan art which is easy to access. Might it be through websites like DeviantArt, Tumblr, Elfenwood, or other similar websites. Fan art more often than not brings the viewer instant satisfaction. When we see something brand new or original, there is no attachment or familiarity there, so it takes someone longer to get attached to it, or rather a different kind of attachment is formed. So it is understandable that fan art is more popular than something original and brand new. It is safe and familiar. Fan art is a way for us to make tributes to the shows, movies, books and video games we love. For me personally, it is an outlet that allows me to study how other artists draw. It allows me to adopt their techniques into my own and experiment with various different styles of drawing. But it also allows me to envisage my favourite characters in situations where the canon verse simply cannot take them to. In some cases, more so in fan-made films and fan fiction, the story can continue where the canon left off, or due to unforeseen circumstances, the canon could not finish the story or had to end it in a way that wasn't expected because of a tragedy. So the fans tell it in their own way in tribute. Or indeed the events that may have happened before can be conceptualized while remaining faithful to the source material. Then there's also headcanons, where the rules of the world are broken and the canon is instead a springboard into a subgenre, and the canon rules are completely ignored. A personal favourite fanfiction of mine is the story of Hades and Persephone based on the Disney Hercules canon called Hope Springs Eternal. Although a lot of changes were made making this much more of a headcanon, changing the Disney and child-friendly version of the Greek myths to something much more accurate and adult, while also explores the psyche of the characters from Disney's Hercules and dives deep into psychological torment that certain characters went through. It may not be the most faithful to the source material in tone, but it's still an excellent read. Another brilliant example would be from my second favourite fandom, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Fallout Equestria is not only well written, but it is a perfect crossover of a personal favourite video game franchise of mine. This story really surprised me in its construction. It seems that anything can be crossed over nowadays, but not many franchises can be fused together so flawlessly. If I wasn't already a Fallout fan, I probably would never have given this a fair chance, as I very rarely read fan fiction at all. But since it is so difficult to find high quality stuff, not to mention I usually only read fan fiction of something that I am already familiar with and obsessed with at one point or another. Since I started making videos on YouTube, I have been watching more and more fan-made shows and have discovered some real gems. One of which has spawned an unhealthy obsession, which admittedly I already had, but this kind of rekindled it and kept my obsession going. You can't deny that there are some awesomely high quality fan-made shows out there, my personal favourite being the Joker blogs. This continues the story of the Joker where the Dark Knight left off. It is faithful to the source material while also tries something new with this character, while still remaining respectful to the memory of the late Heath Ledger. There are of course other fantastic fan-made films based on my favourite franchise of all time, but this one is my personal favourite simply due to the circumstances of its creation. I highly recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it. It can be considered that making fan art is a cheat to get more views and watchers on the sites you share your art on. It's almost like you're selling out in a way. Even a piece of fan art of poor quality will receive more attention than an original piece of art with high quality. But none of this means that fan art isn't, well, art. I consider the Joker blogs just as good, if not better, than some of the mainstream Batman movies, and never considered Scott McClure or Andrew DeVere sellouts in any way, since the show is clearly written by people who are not only fans of a brilliant franchise, but people who have done their research and know exactly what to reference in the right place and time, and how to portray their story in a way that is unique to them, while on a shoestring budget. Fan art has no boundaries. Like I've said before, fan art allows the artist to place characters in situations where the canonverse simply cannot take them. For instance, placing two characters in a show in a relationship, or shipping, as it's been come to known. This is something I rarely do. Instead, I usually simply place characters in awkward scenarios or characters doing ordinary or silly things. That's just what I like to do. I find it amusing and fun to draw. Or I might draw a character in a situation that the canon did depict them in, but I depict it in a slightly different tone or change the design of the character slightly to change the situation completely. Things like that. Or I just draw them in a pose I like, just to develop my drawing and get a different perspective on them, and develop the way I conceptualize them in my head. Interpretation is a great thing to mess around with, since there's no such thing as a wrong interpretation. Knocking a character down a peg or two, depicting them doing something so common, mundane, or downright silly is great fun to do and something people love to see. Of course, then there's the usual and my personal favourite, the crossover fan art. This could show characters from two separate fandoms together, or characters who have been gender bent, swapped costumes, or drawn as different creatures. Characters voiced by the same voice actor. You know what? I could go on with this. Though there are a lot of subgenres of fan art that really do taint the world of fan art. Now this may simply be personal preference, but I do not appreciate fan art based on something innocent changed into something violent and grotesque. Torture porn, for instance, or creepypasta. It's interesting to see what artists have created, but purely from a psychiatric point of view, I find it curious and fascinating that people would take something so clean and innocent and just chop it into tiny pieces. Is it to satisfy some sort of sick urge to see innocents killed? Or perhaps it is more about bringing the dark undertones often lurking beneath the surface. I would never make art like that myself, and if I ever did, I certainly wouldn't share it, but this is just personal taste. I don't draw scenes that depict violence, sex, or drug use unless these are themes that are already in the show that it is based on. Of course, the shock value does result in a lot of attention, but I'm not convinced it's the right kind of attention. It can be argued that if you make fan art, you cannot be original. Art has always been about reinvention and has always been based on something that already exists in some form already. For instance, if you look at Renaissance paintings, aren't they just basically, well, fan art of stories from the Bible? Let's go back to the first two questions I asked at the beginning and start with the first one. As an artist, are you taken seriously when you create fan art? In order to answer that question, you have to decide if you take yourself seriously as an artist. Is it simply a hobby to you? Or do you want to make a career out of it? If it is a hobby, that does not mean you don't take it seriously, of course. But you take a much more relaxed approach to it, since it's simply something for you to enjoy by yourself. It's something that it is for you to enjoy and perhaps share online with others, but you're not pursuing it as a career, so perhaps you don't spend days or even weeks in one piece of art. However, if you want to make a career out of it, you put a lot more time into it, a lot more energy into it, developing your skills and making sure you have an eclectic portfolio, exploring various different styles and mediums. You work yourself to the bone, sometimes not getting any sleep for days, just to make sure the art comes out to be better than what you created before. Or maybe it's an improvement that only you notice yourself. Personally, I often feel embarrassed when people I know see my fan art, especially if they are not familiar with what it is based on or weren't aware I was into that show in the first place. I often wonder if they think that it's rather childish to draw something based on a show like My Little Pony for instance, which is probably what I'm best known for, even though I venture deeper into other fandoms. I'm not saying I feel ashamed, I never feel ashamed of anything I create, but I do often wonder if this is actually conducive to a creator's atmosphere, and wonder if it is actually damaging my career as a whole. You see, the fan art I create always sells, but my original stuff very rarely does. Am I bitter about this? Sometimes. Though it is something I love to do, so don't get me wrong. I'm simply bringing my own concerns of my own work to the table here. Let's move on to the next question. Is my art being taken seriously when it is based on something another artist has created? As a YouTube reviewer and artist, I have even received my own fan art. This is flattering and awesome. I love to see how different artists depict my characters. It can be overwhelming at times too. I can only apologise profusely if I don't give every piece I receive feedback or the amount of attention that each piece should receive. It's no longer possible for me to do. However, I do take it very seriously. I don't just shrug and never look at this stuff I get again. I look at it all the time. Quite often, because of the subject matter, it is very rare that fan art is critiqued in a fair and unbiased way. It may be judged for how accurate the depiction of the character is, instead of whether it is proportioned or posed right. In other words, if a character's eye colour or hair colour isn't right, people will get hyped up about that minor detail and fail to see how technically brilliant the drawing's education has been done. This is not only frustrating but also depressing, since the very thing that an artist craves is constructive criticism. I remember back when I was watching the Joker blogs for the first time, and saw so many people were complaining that Harleen Quinzel's hair was the wrong colour. In the cartoons and comics, Harleen Quinzel has always been depicted as a blonde, but in the Joker blog she is a brunette. This was a minor detail that was enough to put people off watching the show completely. But seriously, would the show have changed at all in quality if the actress playing her dyed her hair blonde? No. In fact, they make a point of this detail in this show, having Joker say to her in one episode, "You should try going blonde, it would suit you." Not to mention the fact that any true Batman fan would know that Harley is a bottled blonde, not a natural blonde, so she is in fact a brunette.
Well, the joke's on you. I'm not even a real blonde.
Do you see what I mean with this? Something as minor as hair colour can make or break a fan-made show for people, regardless of its writing, direction and acting. Which, by the way, is brilliant from an amateur show. So in conclusion, should we stop making fan art in the hopes we are taken more seriously as artists? Of course not. On the whole, for me, drawing characters that already exist was one of the first ways I learned to draw in the first place. I wanted to see if I could draw the characters I fell in love with. This is what inspires me over and over. One of the best ways for me to pull myself out of a funk, or break out of an artist's block, was to draw a character I loved in a really ridiculous situation. Of course I'll never stop drawing my own original concepts, but for me the best way to learn and grow is to look for inspiration by what is already successful and what appeals to me personally. If others like what I create, then that is a bonus, and if I can utilise the skills I learn and implement them into furthering my career, then that's even better. But I do also think that an artist should never just stick to creating one particular thing. You should never only do fan art. An artist should be open to new ideas and be willing to explore and expand on what already exists, alter, adapt, and evolve. An artist should always want to improve and grow and strive for perfection. Regardless of whether or not you gain success, as long as you have fun in what you do, and you enjoy and keep that flame of passion alive, that is what's most important. I'm Mad Munchkin. Stay creative.